AVID Investors, thank you for being here. Todd, Winegar, thank you so much for teaching us about trusts and whether we should trust. This is what I heard today. I heard that one of the primary reasons to use a trust is to avoid probate and to centralize and clarify where all the assets go when one dies. And that it's an efficient way for an LLC interest to be dispersed, but review your operating agreement first because there can be some hurdles. And maybe it's 2 to 5K plus 500 admin. So it's not insanely expensive everywhere you go. Wills, on the other hand, also are a way to clarify where assets go when you die. And when you use a will, you go through probate. And some people treat probate like it's the end of the world. But in Idaho, we're fortunate. It's a lot easier than it is in California. It's fast, it's inexpensive. And at the end of the day, the cost ends up being probably similar to that of the cost of a trust. You just pay a little bit to get it done and then more on the tail end.
Yep.
Okay. And your executor doesn't have their power until they go through a court appointment. But again, it's a few days, no big deal. Your beneficiary or POD pay on death is still relevant in a will, whereas a trust wraps it all up into one.
Yeah, you can still do a POD with the trust, but if you're gonna go to the trouble of doing the trust, the POD, the idea behind it is to avoid probate of that asset. I like the idea of just using the trust.
But beneficiaries and PODs also avoid probate. One of the more obsolete benefits to a trust is avoiding inheritance tax because of the higher exemptions that currently exist, and that can change. 7 million, it might be at some point in a couple years, or 14 million for a married couple. But whichever way you go, all of your assets or your heirs get a step up in basis on death. So whether it's will or trust, revocable or irrevocable, your beneficiary or heirs get that step up in basis.
Irrevocable, no.
Okay. Okay. And the step up in basis means you've avoided capital gains taxes, or your heirs have. They get the full value of your estate. A trust is not, and nor a will, neither are a liability protection. Insurance is your best bet there when we're talking about rental properties. So high liability insurance.
And the L's.
One of the most important things about your trust or your will is who you're putting in the position to deal with things for you when you die, especially with a will, or for both?
Both.
For both. Or when you're incapacitated, the part that we don't really want to think about, if you're still alive, who's in power. And so a trust can define that as can a will.
Well, so with the will, you have a power of attorney, a durable power of attorney, which is just another document. So whether you go a will or a trust, you're gonna appoint somebody that will do the same thing.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's an important detail when factoring in either of these decisions. The main goal, though, would be to avoid having to do both. So if you're going to do a trust, you want to do it right. And if you're 30, you're going to do it wrong because 30. So try to pick one and stick with it and get the assets into the trust if you're using a trust. And don't worry about probate in Idaho. And either way, you probably want to consult with someone as smart and humorous as Todd here.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Well done.
Thank
That
you,
was
Todd.
great.
Thank you,
All
AVID
right.
Investors.